In the next months, something significant will occur in America's food scene, something most of us never expected. Thousands of restaurants are closing their doors for good. And no, it's not just the small mom and pop restaurants. We're talking about giants, household names. You grew up going to these locations. Red Lobster, Applebee's, even Salt Bae's extravagant gold-covered steak business is quietly fading into the background. It appears that restaurant chains are facing extinction. And if you're thinking, well, at least I'll be able to get my favorite BBQ ribs next summer, you may be in for a rude shock. Because today we're looking at 10 of America's largest restaurant businesses that may close in 2025, and believe me, the reasons go far beyond money. This isn't just about lousy business, it's about the demise of a whole segment of American society. Everything is changing, including how we eat, hang out, and communicate with one another, fast. Let's start with the major one. Number 1, Subway. All right, be honest. When was the last time you ate at Subway? For years, it was the go-to destination, especially for students, office workers, or anyone seeking for something quick, inexpensive, and slightly less oily than a burger or a slice of pizza. I used to get a tuna sub at least once a week in college. What about today? Subway has quietly slipped off the map. You probably don't notice when one closes anymore because they are disappearing everywhere. And this is not simply a hearsay. Subway has closed more than 4,000 outlets in the United States in only the previous 5 years. That's right, from a high of over 27,000 stores in 2015, they're now hovering around 20,000 and declining fast. So, what happened? So, it's a perfect storm of problems. First, let's discuss the cuisine. What about the overall Eat Fresh branding? It kind of feels like a joke now, doesn't it? Canned vegetables, processed meats, and sandwiches that seem smaller every time you visit. Meanwhile, today's clients expect true freshness. They want clean ingredients, sustainable sourcing, and the ability to trust what they eat. Subway simply hasn't kept up. Then there's brand damage between the odd court case in Ireland that called into question whether their bread was truly bread. Subway's reputation suffered as a result of the tragic issue involving their former spokesperson, Jared Fogle. And in America, once confidence is lost, it is nearly never restored. But what about the largest issue? Competition. Restaurants such as Jersey Mike's, Firehouse Subs, and Panera have stepped up. They have modernized, they've prioritized openness and consumer experience. Subway, on the other hand, appears to be locked in a time loop with the same old service, drab decor, and employees who appear to want to go home. Even though Subway was sold to a private equity group, Rourke Capital, in 2023, it does not appear that this will trigger the much-anticipated revival. The original founders are now gone, and what remains resembles a corporate ghost ship rather than a brand poised for survival. So, yes, the main question, will Subway make it until 2025? Or will we be left with fuzzy memories of wet footlongs from a business that is now permanently closed? Number 2, Hooters. Okay, image this. You're driving through a sleepy suburb, passing an old-school shopping strip. You see it, a faded Hooters sign over a dirty storefront. There's no music, there's no crowd, just silence. And perhaps that's the entire tale. Number 2, Hooters. Let's be honest, America is turning its back on Hooters. Previously, Hooters was more than just a place to get wings. It was a complete fantasy for a specific type of customer. Attractive women in tight orange shorts, cool beer on tap, and wall-to-wall sports on massive TVs. For better or worse, there was a feeling, a brand. This is a lifestyle. What about that vibe? It is stuck in 1995, and we live in 2025. The world has changed, and Hooters is just didn't. According to Technomic research, the number of Hooters restaurants in the United States has decreased from roughly 430 in 2012 to fewer than 280 by the end of 2024. That is a tremendous slide, and it isn't slowing down. Over the last 2 years alone, at least 40 additional Hooters have shuttered their doors, including in major locations such as Chicago, Houston, and San Diego. However, the core issue is more than just closures. It's that the crowds aren't returning. A Statista study conducted in 2023 discovered something that should have served as a wake-up call. Over 60% of Americans aged 18 to 34 expressed discomfort with Hooters' overall sex sells atmosphere. It no longer feels enjoyable, rather it feels weird. And let's be honest, most younger customers don't want to eat somewhere that makes their significant other feel objectified. Today's diners seek experience, atmosphere, perhaps even somewhere you could bring your mother. Number 3, Red Lobster. This one might hit a little harder. Red Lobster used to imply something. It was the ideal middle ground. cheap luxury. For millions of working class American families, it was a special night out. Anniversary dinners, graduation festivities, that place you went when you couldn't afford steakhouse pricing but still wanted to feel upscale. Number three, Red Lobster. Red Lobster was never about luxury. Not really. It was all about the payoff. It wasn't the type of place to flaunt your money. It was the spot you went with your spouse after a long week. It was your way of saying, like, we deserve this. A rare pleasure, not for the wealthy, but for those who worked 5, 6, or even 7 days a week. But today, even that small comfort is going away. Red Lobster is in big difficulty, and its failure is more than simply a corporate story. It's a screaming warning. A hint that the modest pleasures once available to ordinary working Americans are gradually fading. According to financial data from the Thai Union Group, the Thailand-based seafood conglomerate that holds a majority share in Red Lobster, the chain lost more than $33 million in just the first quarter of 2024. And now they are seriously considering closing hundreds of facilities to attempt to stop the bleeding. So what is going wrong? Honestly, almost anything. The cost of important commodities, particularly lobster and crab, has soared over the last 2 years. Add in inflation, rising wages, and exorbitant rent prices, and the legendary endless shrimp for $20 deal is no longer appealing. It's a financial nightmare. But what about the bigger heartbreak? People who used to pack those booths on weekends are disappearing. According to FSR Magazine's 2023 study, Red Lobster has lost more than 30% of its recurring consumers since before the epidemic. Some people simply cannot afford to eat out anymore. Others argue that the cuisine and experience are simply not competitive in a world that today values farm-to-table, local flair, and experiential eating. What was the result? Dining rooms that used to be brimming with activity on Friday nights now sit silently. The lights are still on, but the soul is gone. From New Jersey to Arizona, for lease signs are appearing on once proud properties. Buildings that once served as neighborhood anchors now stand abandoned. And here's the most painful part. People don't avoid Red Lobster because they dislike it. They are skipping it because they cannot afford it. In a society where the working class is already being priced out of housing, healthcare, and even basic education, the creeping death of a weekend seafood meal feels like yet another sucker punch, another thing slipping out of reach. Red Lobster was never simply a restaurant. It was a sign, a small bit of affordable luxury in an America that still accommodated the middle class. If it disappears in 2025, as many analysts expect, it will be more than simply another broken chain. It will be a bitter reminder of what we have lost. Number 4, Applebee's. Now, let me ask you a question. When was the last time you visited an Applebee's? Not for a particular occasion, not because it was the only spot open, simply because you wanted to. Perhaps it was the Friday night after a long week. You were tired. You did not want to cook. You just wanted something easy, familiar, a booth, the Bourbon Street steak, maybe a few Long Islands with friends, relatives, or coworkers. Applebee's was never considered high-end. That was not the point. It was meant to feel like home, like your neighborhood grill, where the waitresses may recognize you and the menu has never altered much. But these days, that reassuring consistency is also fading. And now, that friendly neighborhood barbecue is quietly packing up and departing. In 2023 alone, Applebee's will close roughly 46 sites across the United States. And it isn't slowing down. According to the CEO of Dine Brands, Applebee's parent business, additional 25 to 35 outlets may close by 2025. Why? Survival in today's economy is not only difficult, but also cruel. Profit margins are rapidly falling, and mid-tier eating is feeling the strain more than ever. But here's the thing. This is more than just sales. It involves a complete transformation in how Americans eat out. As costs rise and wages shrink, individuals are forced to choose between staying at home and cooking to save money, or splurging on elegant, high-quality meals that seems like a real occasion. Applebee's? It is trapped in the middle, and the middle is fading. Technological data backs it up. Since the outbreak, Applebee's return visits have plummeted by roughly 20%. Are people still coming back? Most are above the age of 45, and they are eating out less and less each year. Meanwhile, newer generations, millennials and Generation Z, just don't get it. Number 5, Salt Bae. Now, how about this one? This one was never about the average American, because let's be honest, 99% of us were never going to eat at a Salt Bae restaurant. This was not your typical after-work meal location. This was performance art dressed up like meals. a location where a single slice of salted Wagyu steak may cost you 1,000, a hamburger 120, and if you want the complete experience with the 24-karat gold-covered steak, you'll need to contribute at least $500 before tipping. For a little moment, it was everywhere. Salt Bae, actual name Nusret Gökçe, became a global sensation, that trademark move of sprinkling salt as if you were casting a spell. It went viral. Celebrities, sportsmen, and influencers lined up to appear on the broadcast. It was not about the cuisine, it was about the spectacle. What about now? The glitter has faded, the spotlight is waning, and in the United States, the Salt Bae bubble is breaking. His showy outlets in New York, Miami, and Las Vegas, which used to be filled with customers documenting every mouthful, are now failing. Foot traffic has slowed, the hype has faded off, because at the end of the day, social media celebrity is temporary, and no amount of gold leaf can disguise a subpar eating experience or exorbitant costs in a country where most people are tightening their belts. Since 2023, fissures have appeared. Review sites such as Yelp and Google began to light up, not with praise, but with disappointment. Sky-high prices, rock-bottom service, one reviewer commented. That wasn't a one-off. This became a trend. According to the Financial Times, Salt Bae's American restaurants, those glamorous Nusret locations in cities like New York and Miami, were forced to lay off employees, reduce menus, and, in some cases, see profits drop by 40% in a single year. The media named it the Salt Bae burnout. What once seemed like gold, now everything just feels hollow. Who ever admired his flair and theatrics? They are over it. I'm tired of the spectacle. I am tired of the ego. I'm tired of seeing a man wearing sunglasses indoors and sprinkling salt like it's the main entree. But here comes the difficult part. In a society where millions of working Americans are practically skipping meals to make ends meet, and where food prices have risen by more than 150% since before the pandemic, witnessing someone serve a $500 gold-covered steak feels more like an insult than amusement. Number 6. The Cheesecake Factory. If you've ever visited an American mall, you've seen it. The large, shiny sign, marble floors. The menu is so lengthy it feels like a novel. The Cheesecake Factory was more than simply a restaurant, it was an experience. Portions were massive. The cheesecake was rich. It felt like a pleasure, a small bit of luxury in the midst of a hectic schedule. What about now? That treat is beginning to seem like a weight. Today, if you ask someone if they're still going to the Cheesecake Factory, they might pause. A shrug, perhaps even a not anymore. Why? Because for many American families, the expense of going out continues to rise while incomes remain stagnant. A typical dinner for two at the Cheesecake Factory, you're looking at around $50 to $60 before tip. That's no longer a casual night out for a family who is already saving money on groceries, gas, and rent. That's an extravagance, perhaps even an impossible. According to a National Restaurant Association report, the Cheesecake Factory lost more than 20% of its consumer base between 2018 and 2023, and it's easy to see why. Chipotle and Panera offer what today's diners want: faster, fresher, simpler meals at more reasonable costs. And the Cheesecake Factory, it's sort of stuck in the past. That once favorite 250-item menu, a monument to excess, is now simply tiring. Too many options, too much is going on. For a generation accustomed to clean design, streamlined apps, and quick decisions, the huge menu feels more like a burden than a luxury. Even the vibe has begun to feel tired. Number 7. Buffalo Wild Wings. There was a time when Buffalo Wild Wings, or B-dubs as fans called it, was the place to go on game nights. There are big screens on every wall. You hold a cool beer in your hand. The wings were so hot they made your eyes water. It wasn't simply a restaurant, it was a ritual. What about now? That ritual is vanishing. What used to be a must-see hotspot is gradually becoming an afterthought, and the issues go deeper than merely poor service or increased costs. First, we need to consider how consumer patterns have changed. Buffalo Wild Wings has prospered for years on a successful recipe of beer, wings, and sports. However, that formula does not have the same attraction in 2025, especially not with Generation Z and younger millennials who make diverse restaurant selections. People are more concerned with their health, balance, and nutrition, and oily, high-calorie meals simply do not fit into that lifestyle. According to Statista, Buffalo Wild Wings revenue has declined by approximately 15% during 2018. That's a major setback for a company based largely on pleasure. So, where are all the diners going? They choose superior alternatives, such as fast casual restaurants like Chipotle, Sweetgreen, and Panera. Places that offer food quickly but still feel fresh, healthful, and in sync with how people want to eat nowadays. Simple ingredients, clean tastes, a sensation of control over what enters your body. There's another issue, the mood. Buffalo Wild Wings has built its whole brand around energy, big games, huge crowds, and tremendous noise. However, not everyone wants that anymore. Indeed, many do not. After a long day, people aren't necessarily searching for a crowded bar where they have to shout above the din of a dozen games. They are searching for something more relaxing, intimate, and peaceful. So, what happens to a brand that is all about loud, greasy, and packed in a world that values calm, cleanliness, and curation? It gets left behind. For some, a night out at B-dubs is now more exhausting than enjoyable. That's a big dilemma for a community that formerly thrived on being the go-to spot for partying. However, it is not only the atmosphere that has changed, it is also the price. Buffalo Wild Wings isn't inexpensive. In an economy already reeling from inflation and growing living costs, the cost of a simple night out is becoming more difficult to bear. By 2022, a typical supper for two at B-dubs might cost $30 to $40 before beverages. Meanwhile, competitors such as Wingstop and Zaxby's provide similar meals for $20 to $25. What about that pricing difference? It directs budget-conscious diners directly to the exits. So, how does Buffalo Wild Wings weather the storm? It requires more than a few showy promotions. It requires a comprehensive business model makeover. That involves redesigning the menu to include healthier options, more variety, and prices that do not put customers off. However, such changes take time. B-dubs may not have enough time, especially in a market where consumer tastes are changing faster than ever before, because B-dubs is not only competing with other wing joints, it is confronting a completely new societal mindset, one in which eating must be enjoyable, affordable, and conscientious, where customers care as much about the atmosphere and ingredients as they do about the final price. Once, Buffalo Wild Wings was the go-to spot for wings, beer, and the big game. Today, it is only one of several alternatives, and if it does not modernize quickly, it risks becoming a forgotten name in America's cutthroat restaurant market. Number 8, Taco Bell. Taco Bell, with its economical, fast, and certainly crave-worthy tacos, has long been a fixture in American culture, particularly among late-night snackers and college students worldwide. But the question today is whether Taco Bell can maintain its position in a world where diners are growing more discerning, not just about pricing, but also about what's in their food. People become excited when you mention Taco Bell. It is nostalgia. It's 2 a.m. run for crunch wraps. It's colorful cuisine at incredibly low pricing. But beyond the neon lights and creative advertisements, major issues are looming. The largest? A significant shift in American dietary patterns. Yes, millions still enjoy Taco Bell's robust flavors. Diners, however, are increasingly searching for more than just low prices. They want clean, pure, and nutritional food. Taco Bell's approach is becoming outmoded in a world where ingredient labels are studied, TikTokers analyze food chemicals, and fast casual chains promote real food as their main selling feature. While the firm has made some attempts, such as providing vegetarian alternatives and experimenting with plant-based meats, many customers believe these changes are too little, too late. Because the reality is, Taco Bell's identity has traditionally been associated with quick food, not careful eating, and now that identification is becoming a liability. According to a National Restaurant Association research, consumption of traditional breakfast foods such as pancakes has plummeted by 44% in the last 5 years. And this implies danger for IHOP, a company established on pancake perfection. For decades, visiting IHOP was a Saturday habit, a spot where sleepy-eyed families can congregate over coffee, eggs, and sticky heaps of syrup-soaked delight. However, today's breakfast crowd is on the go. They want cuisine that is quick, nutritious, and portable. Smoothies, protein bowls, and avocado toast all packed up to go. IHOP, with its sit-down approach, expansive menus, and calorie-dense options, is out of sync. Not only is the menu out of date, it is the experience. Modern eaters, particularly millennials and Generation Z, are increasingly looking for settings that are visually appealing, experiential, and health-conscious. They want breakfast that is fresh, energizing, and Instagram-worthy. Meanwhile, IHOP locations, with their old interiors and familiar but fading atmosphere, feel like they've been frozen in time. The data backs it up. IHOP's foot traffic has steadily declined, particularly among younger groups. While delivery agreements have helped considerably, they cannot entirely replicate the eating experience that IHOP relies on. The brand itself, however, may pose the most significant challenge. Because when people hear the word IHOP, they do not think of healthy eating or creative menus. They think heavy, hearty, and old school. In an age where perception is everything, IHOP's image could be its biggest disadvantage. To survive, the business must do more than just add a few light options. It must rebuild its identity, redefining breakfast for a generation that drinks oat milk lattes and counts macros. That entails upgrading its cuisine, changing its decor, and embracing flexibility, offering alternatives that appeal to both indulgent diners and health-conscious customers. If it succeeds, IHOP might create a captivating comeback story. If it doesn't, it risks becoming just another relic, a fond recollection that gathers dust in the back of America's mind. In a rapidly expanding culinary sector, TGI Fridays has struggled to keep up with modern dining trends. The problem is more than just the food. Today's diners want freshness, customization, and high-quality ingredients, yet much of Friday's menu still relies on prepackaged, calorie-laden staples. Loaded potato skins and Jack Daniel's burgers, which were formerly popular, now feel more nostalgic than appealing to younger consumers seeking cleaner, healthier, and more dynamic options. Then there's the ambiance. The wacky decor, flare-covered clothing, and party-like atmosphere that formerly distinguished the chain, it now reads as tired, a throwback to the 1990s rather than a destination for today's discriminating eaters. Fridays is losing ground to trendy cafes that provide elegant decor, handmade cocktails, and locally influenced menus in an era where experience is just as important as flavor. Even happy hour, a traditional TGI Fridays staple, isn't attracting the same numbers. Many young professionals prefer craft brewers, cocktail lounges, and even at-home mingling to chain bar environments. Friday's once famous beverages menu is now up against fierce competition from restaurants that provide better ingredients, greater value, and a better atmosphere. Financial troubles are piling up. With expensive overhead, an outdated fleet of eateries, and rising labor costs, the company is pressured on all sides. Newer, leaner models are demonstrating that they can give more for less, whereas Fridays are burdened by a footprint designed for a different period. To survive, TGI Fridays will require more than simply a menu revamp. It necessitates a complete rethinking of what going out for dinner means in 2025. That means adopting smaller, more adaptable venues. That entails creating a menu that accurately reflects how people eat today. Most crucially, it entails reconnecting with a generation that rejects what Fridays once offered, but may yet be receptive to what they could become. Because at the end of the day, Fridays is not simply competing with other casual dining establishments. It is competing with a lifestyle change, and if it does not develop rapidly, it risks becoming simply another brand that has passed its prime. Today's consumers don't only want huge, oily, calorie-dense meals. They want dishes that are lighter, fresher, and healthier. Nonetheless, TGI Fridays continues to rely primarily on classic mainstays such as burgers, ribs, and fries, which no longer meet the expectations of modern diners.